Best thing playing for Weraroa, the fact that people actually care who they're playing for, and the history. Like you say, this is our 90th Jubilee, so it's just basically just an awesome club because of the history, really.
The Weraroa Cricket Club was established by the Broughton twins in 1920, along with George France, who was one of the first Weraroa players to take the field. Although we know games were played since 1921, the first recorded game was a friendly pre-season match against Otaki at the Weraroa Domain in 1926. It was a triumphant win and proved a great start to the season. From then on, Weraroa Cricket Club became known as Home of Champions. In 1922, the memorial gates were opened by the Right Honourable W.F. Massey, Premier of New Zealand, to pay tribute to the many men who fought and died during World War I.
The memorial gates were the result of a Queen Carnival after World War I. The funds that were raised from that built the memorial gate and the fence right around the ground on the side of Oxford Street and the main road. When they became unsafe, blocks were falling off them and it was a bit dangerous. Council dismantled them and the gate was stored in the council depot but then disappeared and nobody could find it wherever it went.
A stone wall and plaque now stand where the gates used to. Although the gates are no longer, this tribute will live on forever. World War II played a big role in uniting small-town cricket clubs in New Zealand. The Levin club and Weraroa joined in order to keep the love of the game alive. Despite such grim times, spending 2 days a week playing cricket was where the men sought refuge.
When I came home, I was only medium pace. I had a bullet wound in the back. It passed right through my body and very close to the spine, and it affected the muscles and, matters of that nature.
Kevin De Castro served in the Middle East for 2 years before coming home in 1947 due to injury. He returned to cricket a year later and is the oldest living member of the Weraroa club. His stepfather, George France, was awarded the Lifetime Patron of the Club Award for his dedication and commitment to Weraroa cricket. Although no longer with us, his presence is still felt. As Kevin recalls, a lot has changed since back in his day.
In my day, we played 2-day games, and then I suppose 20 years later they got around to 1-day games, like we would go to practice, put a net up. There was no rolling a wicket or anything of that nature. The batsman had to put up with whatever pace and that we turned down, not like today where they've got stuff available to them.
The club rooms didn't have any lights. They were pretty primitive club rooms, but the guy with the Morris 8 used to drive it up to the edge of the pavilion, turn the lights on, and I sat there, and some of them sat there till fairly late.
You didn't really need to shut the door or lock it when you went away. There were that many holes in the weatherboard, you know. Anybody could get in at any time, and they were so damn small. It was, when you were changing, you were bumping into one another, you had cricket gear everywhere.
It was around this time when the players thought that they needed a place of their own and decided to raise some money to build a pavilion.
We used to go and get peaches up in Hawke's Bay, then come back and sell them. And then we have to pack them when we all got home. And they'd get them down to us and we'd pack them. And then we have to go out and sell them all around there as a fundraiser for the club.
Once or twice I had a mate down McLeavy Road, Kevin Elliott, he's a horse trader. And I towed his double horse float up and we just put apples loose in that, about halfway up. I can remember doing it once they had petrol rationing and we had a 50-litre drum of petrol on the back of the truck. So you couldn't buy petrol on a Sunday at the garage, things like that.
Bill Crichton and his father Alec was the president of the club for some time, and they instigated a raffle at one stage to raise money to build a grandstand type pavilion at Weraroa, and it was a playhouse which we carted all over the district and raised a fair bit of money.
We'd had a gambling evening and we'd raised about £107. And a week later, a member of the club went along to check, well, he happened to be the president at the time, to check on our bank account. And he found that there were only £3 in it. It had been withdrawn 2 days earlier, £104. As he was coming across from the ANZ Bank there, he met our treasurer, and the treasurer said to him, "How are you?" And he said, "I'm not too well." And the reason is because he knew that the treasurer was the one who had infringed. So we attacked the chap that night, we got the money, and of course he had been treasurer to one or two other organisations, and they were out of luck. We'd got in first. So that was quite good, actually. You know, it's a moment you don't forget.
During October in 1930, a meeting was held with the local council to help finance the maintenance of the cricket grounds. The upkeeping of the pitch in those days was the players' and members of the club's responsibility. It wasn't until 1956 when Basil Netton donated a tractor to help the lads maintain the wicket. To everyone's delight, Ken Swain stepped up and took over responsibility, which made the players who previously had to take turns rolling the pitch a lot happier.
For a number of years, Ken Swain had been doing the wicket, and he'd always used W.A. Mullen's van to do it. And at that stage they downsized their business because they lost contracts to the motor industry where they used to make all the car mats. So we were out Ken was without a vehicle to do the wickets. He was starting to use his own. So I thought rather than him destroy his bloody own personal vehicle, that we'd leave the tractor there. So that's how it happened.
I came and left college at Christmas time and had half a season in the B grade, and introduced to KB Swain, and he said, "Look after me, son, and I'll look after you." And he's been a great steward for the club, and spent hours on the wickets, and used to stand there and guard, and anyone pushed a pram across the wicket, he used to yell at them. And
Neil, I retired, and when I came down here one day, I'd seen that some idiot from Levin Club had actually top-dressed the wicket with river sand, which is absolutely stupid. So I went out there and had a good look at it, and I thought, well, the next year I'm going to do the wickets at Weraroa. I just kept doing it for over 25 years. And I only gave up eventually when I went into hospital, came home, and I couldn't lift up the roller to put on the tractor.
The infamous tractor became an important part of the club. Gifted from Basil Netton, it lived at the Weraroa club rooms and caused a fair bit of drama, but mostly from one person.
A guy called Paul Murphy out of the bank.
Oh, yes.
Had 2 or 3 years here. He was a complete clown act.
So he put the tractor through the wall?
Yes, he drove the tractor through the wall. I mean, that was the other thing that used to happen to the tractor. No brakes, of course. Once they've had a few drinks, they'd have races on the tractor, round and round the grass and everything. There's never a dull moment.
He went in to start it one day, he turned the key on, put the crank handle in and gave it a start, and then it started, but he hadn't taken it out of gear. So he came out of the tractor shed, followed by the tractor saying, Jesus Christ, and throwing the crank handle away. And he was quite a religious man too.